This video is to go along with using the midpoint formula. So what you see on my page is an example of where the midpoint formula comes from. We start with one point, A, that has x values and y values, x1 and y1. We also have a second point, B, and we call its x values x2 and y2. So those numbers down below actually just tell us that these x and y values belong to point B, these x and y values belong to point A. Now in the midpoint formula, what you'll notice is that to find the midpoint, we're really finding the middle or the average. So in order to find the average, what we have to do is we have to add both of the x values together and divide by 2. Then separately, add both of the y values together and divide those by 2. So we're finding the average here by adding x values and cutting them in half, also adding y values and cutting them in half. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of examples, and I'll explain what I'd like for you to do the rest of class today. So on this graph, you will see that I've copied the midpoint formula for us at the top, but also I would like for you to find the midpoint of this line segment between points A and B. So what we have to do for the midpoint formula is we have to add together my two x values first. So my first x value is -6. My second x value is 3. After I add them together, I want to divide by 2. I'm going to do the same thing with my y values of 0 and 4. Separately, I'm going to add together 0 and 4, also dividing that by 2. So let's start to simplify our x values. -6 plus 3 is -3. And we're also going to have to divide that by 2. Our y values are 0 and 4, which is 4. And we're also going to have to divide that by 2. Simplifying my x values, I end up with -1.5. You can use a calculator for that if you're not good with fractions. But my x value is -1.5, and my y value is 4 divided by 2, which is just 2. So in total, my midpoint here would be at -1.5, -1.5, 2. Which if you'd like, you can go ahead and use the shape tool on Google Slides to actually plot that visually. What we can see here is this point is perfectly in the middle of the line segment that was there. Let's do another problem. Find the midpoint of the line segment between points A and B. So what I'd like for you to do is click and drag the points -1, -3, and 5, 0 onto the graph. And again, we're going to apply the midpoint formula. My x values are -1 and 5. So I'm going to add those together and divide them by 2. My y values are -3 and 0. So I'm going to add those together and divide by 2. Now we're ready to simplify. -1 plus 5 is 4. We're going to divide that by 2. -3 plus 0 is still -3. And I'm also going to have to divide that by 2. Simplifying my x, 4 divided by 2 is 2. Simplifying my y, -3 divided by 2 is -1.5. Again, if you're not comfortable with fractions, feel free to use a calculator to finish simplifying your fractions. But what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to try finding the midpoint of RS, finding the midpoint of JKCD, and then making your way to IXL, which has been assigned to you through Google Classroom. It is skill 2YG, finding midpoint.